Hello, I'm Art with Art's Corner, sponsored by ISTT. I'm a retired cyber cop and assistant chief of police, and I'm now the security and compliance officer at ISTT. Today, I've got a very special guest with me today, Chief Jason Franks of the Smiths Grove, Kentucky Police Department. Chief, how are you doing today?
Doing great. How are you?
Excellent, sir. Can you tell our audience a little bit about yourself?
Sure, Art. I spent the last 12 years down at the Bowling Green Police Department. There, I was able to serve on the critical response team. Did a little over 3 years in criminal investigations. Recently, I took over as the new chief of police in January of this year and been up here ever since.
So, Chief, this is Cybersecurity Month, month of October, and a lot of people don't realize cybersecurity has, or electronic security has a lot to do with other types of crimes that traditionally you wouldn't have assumed those two went together. And that's what I want to talk to you today about. What kind of problems you see in your community that concern you?
Yeah, I'm glad you touched on that. Some of the issues that I'm running into, especially here lately, is car break-ins. People leave their cars unlocked, or some of these kids going around, they have some cruel tools, and they've learned how to get in the cars. Most people don't think that shouts cybersecurity, but some of the things people leave in cars just it astounds me. Guns are a big thing. Gun safety is huge. The last thing you want is a kid or someone to get a gun out of your car and then go do something bad, or it ends up at a crime scene, and then it's like one of those first 48-hour shows and police are knocking on your door asking questions. But what people really don't think of is the electronic devices. People are looking for the cell phones, they're looking for the laptops, for the iPads, and things like that. And with 2020 and everything being connected to technology, and especially right now with the COVID and hybrid schedule in schools and stuff, people are leaving these devices in cars, and people aren't technically savvy a lot of times. They leave them logged in, they leave them connected, they leave them open, or the passcode's weak. And so that we run into a lot of issues with that.
Yeah, one of the first things that pops into my mind when you're talking about that is, and this is true for all of us. Think about the amount of data that's on your phone or your laptop. Is that not plenty for somebody to do an identity theft case?
Oh man, we do everything on our devices. It seems like nowadays your mobile banking, where people automatically, I'm gonna save my password in here, so for convenience, they do grocery shopping, social media, they're logged into there. All that stuff has your sensitive information, your name, your date of birth, social security number, a lot of times, your kid's date of birth, and so bank cards.
Yep.
People save everything on these devices, and we just get in such a hurry. We don't think about, the security aspect of things.
That's right. And what we want people to do is, you take this from me, you should have an expensive paperweight. The value is not this device. The value is the data that's on this device.
Right.
We encourage everybody to have strong passcodes on their phones, be able to locate their own phone remotely, and be able to wipe it. Because like we said, we're not worried about the device, we're worried about the information on it. And Chief, I think you and I talked about this one time before. That laptop, unless it's encrypted, that password is very easy to get around. Before I went to ISTT, I was teaching at Sky CTC. We taught that no later than the second semester, how to get around Windows passwords. And these were freshman students, no later than sophomore year. And it is very, very easy to do. So I'm with you. Not only do I not want the device stolen, I'm worried about the stuff on it as well. So now we only used to worry about the expense of that device. Now we worry about the expense of the data that's on it. And then we wind up with an identity theft case. And speaking about identity theft cases and false identities, I think you told me that you might have a couple other problems that you're seeing more of in your community. What else you got, Chief?
All right, so it's usually all year long, but especially around the holidays, I start getting complaints in the office about these phishing emails, and it seems to be quite a bit of a problem now. Is there any information you can kind of give me to pass?
Yeah, let's talk about what an easy definition of phishing is, and it's spelled with a PH, not an F. It's got nothing to do with going down to Drake's Creek or somewhere. Wrong kind of fishing. That one's more enjoyable. We'd rather do that than have to work a fishing case, right? That's right. Let's go to the creek. So a phishing email is when you get an email that looks like it's from one individual and it's really not. And a prime example is you get an email from your bank that says, you have been breached. Please click on this link and reset your password. And in reality, it did not come from your bank. There's a lot of technical aspect, and if we may get into that at a different segment, but it'd be a whole one on how it works. But just know this, at the top where it says to, from, date, and subject matter,
Right.
it is very easy to make that say Santa Claus, okay? Not a problem. I can make it look like it's coming from your official email account. So that's what phishing is. Spear phishing is a directed one. That's, instead of saying, dear customer, it'll say, dear chief, I got your name from Art McFadden. Now, of course, Art. I'm a retired police officer. We crossed paths in CID. Oh, wait, Art is referring this person to me. I trust Art. This might be legit. But
Okay.
they had to do a little bit more research on you and me before they sent that email out. And what that is, the purpose of that one is to help gain your confidence in that suspect. In other words, they want them to give themselves, hey, I got credibility. I know Art McFadden. Art McFadden's a cyber cop. That's what spear phishing is. So same kind of tactic, but one is more directly significantly at you. And we're seeing more spear phishing because we're getting a higher rate of return of the bad guy's work. The regular phishing is easy. I throw out this big email. Chief, you ever got an email from a bank that says you've been breached, and you're like, I've never banked with you before in my life? Have you gotten an email like that?
Absolutely. I probably have a whole spam box full of those type of emails.
Right. Those are general phishing ones, and the spear phishing is more specific. So the advice to our citizens that I have is, don't believe everything. Pretend you're a police officer and don't believe anything. Make sure you prove it to yourself first. Your bank, the IRS, and nobody's going to send you an email like that. If you think you have a problem with your bank and they send you something like that, or any business you do business with, get that card out of your wallet, flip that thing over, call the 1-800 number yourself that you looked up, or look it up yourself on the internet. Why are we going to trust the phone number that they gave us in the email? It could be fictitious as well. So that's a low-tech way to make sure that we don't fall for these types of things on that. And are you seeing anything with social media and that type of stuff as far as maybe some fraud there?
Absolutely. So on the social media side of things, what we're seeing is these folks are setting up accounts. It can either be someone they recognize or a name they recognize. Sometimes it's a celebrity. Sometimes it's somebody they've never heard of before. But they end up getting into these kind of online relationship type deals. It's not as quick. I once had a lady, for example, who was convinced that Henry Cavill, the guy that plays Superman, was in love with her, had found her out of, all these millions of people out here across the country. He found her, was in love with her. They fostered this relationship, if you will, through Facebook for probably close to 2 months. At the end of that 2 months, Henry Cavill had her convinced that he wanted to be with her, but he needed her to buy iTunes cards from the dollar store.
Right, because he needs iTunes cards.
All right. I mean,
makes perfect sense.
Oh, absolutely. So it wasn't until we actually sit down with this lady and explain to her, think about this from, logically. Let's apply, I hate to say this, not in a rude way, but a little common sense. On the outside looking in, do you really think this guy who makes millions and millions and millions of dollars needs the lady who's on a limited income living in a rundown apartment to buy him iTunes card from the dollar store?
Right. Yep.
And it was breaking it down like that where she finally started coming out of this, but she was so ingrained in this relationship aspect of it that she wanted to believe, and she was desperate to believe.
Yeah.
These individuals seem to seek out these folks. And if it's just getting one person out of, hundreds of people a day, that's one person that they're going to get several $100, $1,000, or sometimes, and more tragic, their whole life savings.
Absolutely. Yeah. We're seeing that more and more often. That's called catfishing, where someone sets up a fictitious social media account in their name. I had a similar case, Chief. This woman believed she was in love with this guy. He was nowhere near the content that we're sitting in right now. And he convinced her that it was cheaper for him tax-wise for him to mail her items, and then she remailed them. So it was a double case. It was for two different types of social engineering attacks against her. The romance aspect, and then remail this for me. And the way I found out about it was the online companies were filing complaints, and it got to me eventually And I went to her, and she was convinced that her boyfriend lived in England. I did an IP trace routes on it. He was nowhere near the United Kingdom. And similar case, and yeah, we returned a lot of merchandise, but she was financially responsible for a good portion of it as well, for anything that she had done. So yeah, catfishing is a big problem. It actually happened to my mother-in-law, God rest her soul. She called me up one day, very upset. She had only gotten on Facebook towards that later part of her life, and someone had set up a new Facebook account and stole the pictures off of her Facebook account. And what that scam to do is, it's still catfishing, is let's say it looks like my mother-in-law contacts you and says, hey, Chief, Art told me this was a great investment. Same thing. We're building confidence. Right. So now you're seeing this picture of my mother-in-law going, that's Art's mother-in-law. Yeah, I'll be friends with her. Next thing you know, you're getting a link of work from home. Send me, like you said, iTunes, some kind of gift card, or Bitcoin, or a cryptocurrency. For those of you that don't know what that is a very difficult type of money to track. And that's why the bad guys love it. So Bitcoin just happens to be the most popular one, but there are other types of currency out there, cryptocurrency. But yeah, your city, just like everybody else, our days of thinking, this is a small community, this doesn't happen here. We got our head in the sand if we believe that, don't we?
We do. And, sometimes I think it's easier to prey on a smaller community because, again, that mindset of, we're Smiths Grove, we're less than 1,000 people. It would never happen here.
Right.
But you get folks, especially with the generational gap and people that aren't as technologically savvy as some of our kids. I mean, I have 3 kids at home, and my kids can get in and do a Google Meet or Zoom and set it up without any issues. And I'm sitting here like a caveman with 2 fingers, for 15 minutes trying to log into this window. And so, it's easy to take advantage of ignorance when someone is just ignorant of the technology and doesn't know any better.
Yeah.
And you pull out one crumb that looks like it's legit, and people tend to buy it hook, line, and sinker.
Yeah. If it sounds too good to be true, it is.
Yeah, absolutely. Are there some other things you think in these emails or, these online schemes, things that just kind of jump out that should be I should be immediately suspicious of this, and some things they can protect themselves?
They're on emails. One of the biggest ones I'm seeing is misspelled words, because like I said, these suspects may not be anywhere near the United States. Misspelled words, things that don't make sense within the email itself. Those are big clues also. Or if you're not expecting that email. Anything from a business, the IRS is not sending you an email that says you owe us money and pay us to iTunes.
The IRS is not going to send the SWAT team and SEAL Team 6 to pick you up if you don't pay $40,000 by noon.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's what we got. And the suspects use, like you made a great point just then, by noon. And what they're trying to do is they're trying to put the pressure on the victim and going, you've got 20 minutes or else your world is about to get tossed on its ear. So that's the other thing the bad guys don't want to do. They don't want to give them 24 hours, because what can they do in 24 hours? They can call the chief of police and go, what do you think about this? And you'll go, oh God, no. They don't want to give the victim any opportunity to figure out they are a perpetrator. I'm glad you brought that up, Chief. Yeah, we see a lot of that as well. Chief, we're going to have you on here again, and we'll talk about more good stuff. Any other big ones we need to hit right this time?
No, I think it about covers it. Thank you. It's going to answer a lot of questions. And I appreciate you having me on today, Art.
My pleasure, Chief. You be safe. And citizens of Smiths Grove, take care out there.
All right.
Have a great day, Chief.